You're watching CHCO-TV's gavel-to-gavel coverage of the February 18th, 2025 regular council meeting for the town of St. Andrews. I'm Vicki Hogarth. Today's meeting begins with two public hearings of objection. The first is for Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw. The second hearing is for Bylaw 25-01 regulating vehicular traffic, and council will later discuss this bylaw. Under Planning and Community Development, Councillors Harlan and Heenan will move that Council sets a date of Monday, March 17th at 6:30 p.m. for a public hearing of objections to Amendment Z22-09 to the zoning bylaw for the Algonquin Spa project. Under Public Works and Public Safety, Councillors Bennett and Neal will open a discussion on Draft Animal Control Bylaw 25-03. Under Economic Development, Business and Culture, Councillors Hurdle and Weir will move that Council grants leave for the second reading of Bylaw 25-02, regulating peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks. Under Recreation and Environment, Councillors Gumichel and Blanchard will move that Council approves the request for support for the 45th edition of the St. Andrews Kiwanis Father's Day Race, taking place Sunday, June 15th. Councillors Gumichel and Blanchard will also move that Council accepts the resignation of Siobhan Neal from the Environmental Advisory Committee and to appoint 8 members of the public to the committee. Now let's join Council at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex Chambers in St. Andrews.
All right, Council, let's call to order our first of 3 meetings. This one is the public hearing of objections to Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01. It is Tuesday, February 18th, 6:30. We're at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex. This meeting is being streamed through Zoom and Facebook, and members of the public were welcome and still welcome to send any communication to Pete Knopper at Town of St. Andrews regarding this particular hearing. Taking a look at members of council, Councillor Heenan is absent and Councillor Blanchard as well is not online, but I do see Councillor Hurdle is joining us virtually. Hello, Councillor Hurdle, and thank you to all other members of council for being here. And I do want to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the CHCO-TV people. For this meeting, there's just the one item, but I'll be looking for an approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover, please? I've got Councillor Neal, seconded by Councillor Bennett. Discussion? Seeing none, so we'll jump right into it. So we do, sorry?
You got to call the motion.
Sorry. A little rusty, I guess. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That's everybody. We've been approved. And then it gets right into a recommended motion. Is that correct? No, we're all good. Disclosure of conflict of interest, any for this evening? So we are in no presentation, so we are into the hearing of objections. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak regarding this particular hearing of objections? Seeing none, is there anybody online, Mr. Knopper?
We have one person online. For the one person online, if you have any comments or questions regarding Amendment Z22-11 to the zoning bylaw, please raise your virtual hand. Again, last call for those that are online that have any questions or comments regarding Amendment Z22-11, please raise your hand. No hands raised.
And this was to streamline a process more for the PAC to make it a lot more simple. And I don't think we got any communication regarding this particular one, did we?
At this time, we received some questioning on it, but no actual comments or directions to council.
All right, council. Well, since nobody in the room would like to speak and no one online would like to speak, we've got all communication. There's no need for question period, so I'll be looking at 6:33 p.m. for motion to adjourn the first meeting. It's Deputy Mayor Ackergy and seconded by Councillor Gumichel. All in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And any opposed to adjourning? That's everybody. We have been adjourned. Let's jump right now into the public hearing of objections for bylaw number 25-01. That's regulating vehicular traffic for, here we are again, February 18th. We have got some communication on that one, but if anyone is watching this and would like to provide some further questions or comments regarding this particular bylaw that we're about to discuss, you can do so again by emailing pknopper at Town of St. Andrews. So the recording of attendance is the same as the previous meeting. Councillor Blanchard and Councillor Heenan are not here. And again, want to recognize that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the CHCO-TV people. Could I have a mover for this hearing of objections for the agenda? Got Deputy Mayor Ackergy and seconded by Councillor Harland, any changes to this particular agenda? Seeing none, all in favor of approving this agenda, please signify by saying aye. Perfect. And disclosure of conflict of interest. Does anyone have a vehicle? Not seeing any on this one. So no presentations. Let's just jump right into the hearing of objections. I do note that your package does have feedback from another number of residences, as well as feedback from the open house, which is very useful in your deliberations. Would anyone in the audience like to speak regarding this particular hearing of objections? Okay, I'm seeing none. And anyone online like to speak regarding this particular hearing of objections?
With one person online, I'll ask anybody online that has a question or comment regarding the motor vehicle bylaw, please raise your hand. Last call, if you have any questions or comments regarding the motor vehicle bylaw, please raise your hand. No comments.
All right, so that wraps up the hearing of objections for bylaw 25-01. So I'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. I've got Councillor Bennett, seconded by Deputy Mayor Akaji. All in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Thank you. We're going to switch the technology over and we'll start the next meeting very shortly. All right, let's call to order the regular council meeting. Here we are for our third and final meeting of the evening, February 18th, 7 p.m. Well, just shy of 7 p.m., 6:43 p.m. for the regular council meeting. It is being streamed through Zoom and Facebook. If anyone has any questions pertaining to tonight's agenda, you can email pnopper@townofstanders.ca and we'll just do a quick check during question period for those. The recording of attendance, Councillor Heenan and Councillor Blanchard are not here, but I appreciate all other members of council making it. And I do want to recognize that we are on the unceded traditional territory of the Beskow-Tomagati people. Approval of the agenda. I guess I'll have a mover and seconder get on the floor, and then we'll do a quick amendment. I've got Councillor Harland, a seconder, Councillor Gumashell. Discussion on this one. Under new business, I'd like to add the arena water line repairs. Was that the only one that we wanted to add this evening? Okay, could I, Councillor, is that a move to accept it? No, you have additional one?
Yes.
Okay.
You may want to put it under You may want to put it into private session, but I guess I'll just call it composition of council. I think probably the clerk knows what I'm talking about. And
Yes, is that the composition between wards of councillors, or is that?
no,
Okay. Well, we can go to close since, and then if we need to come out, we can always come out, right? So let's add that in under close. Thank you, Councillor Ware. So there's 2 amendments on that. Any other amendments before we move on the amendments? Once again, there's that closed item and then arena water line repairs. Okay, could I have a mover for that amendment? I've got Deputy Mayor Akaji and seconded by Councillor Bennett. Any discussion on those amendments? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Those have been adopted. Now we'll go back to the original question. All in favor of approving the agenda, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. The agenda has been approved. All right. Disclosure of conflict of interest. Any this evening? Okay. I don't see any. No presentations. We already did the minutes and we did the staff report last time, so it jumps right into the introduction, consideration, passing of bylaws and motions, and this one will be Councillor Harland.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So this is reference number PCD 250206. And the subject is amendment to Z22-09 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01 for the Algonquin Spa. Call for public hearing of objections. And the background is as follows. The representatives of the Algonquin Spa project have been working on a redesign of the 2-story spa project. Due to the cost of the project, they have moved from a 2-story design to a 1-story design. As such, changes to the council resolution section under amendment Z22-09 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01 are being proposed. Please see the attached documentation for additional details on the proposed changes. Note that they still intend to use the same material outlined in the original application, including the white cladding, red roof, etc., to ensure they are meeting the look and feel of the Algonquin Hotel. as part of the Community Planning Act with the changes to the council resolution. Another public hearing of objection is needed. So the motion is as follows. The Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Monday, March 17th, 2025 at 6:30 p.m. to the W.C. O'Neill Arena, Council Chambers, for a public hearing of objection to the proposed amendments to Z22-09 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01 for the Algonquin Spa project as per Section 111 of the Community Planning Act, and I so move.
I'll second her for Councillor Hartland's motion. I've got Councillor Gumichel. Discussion on this one? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. That has been approved. We'll jump ahead. The next one would be discussions. They're under Public Works and Public Safety. It would be in regards to what we just had a hearing of objections on, which was bylaw number 25-01, a bylaw to regulate vehicular traffic in the town of St. Andrews. Is this Mr. Knopper, I assume, for this one?
So thank you, Your Worship. So we've gone through the open house and have received several bits of feedback from the public as regards to proposed bylaw 2501 regarding regulating vehicular traffic in the town of St. Andrews. So we had approximately 20 residents at the open house that provided feedback. Thank you to the councillors that attended. Concerns that were brought forward included questions on the Harriet Street and Reed Avenue, why we're not making it a four-way stop. That was sort of brought up as concerns with traffic flows and a lot of visitors and residents stopping at the crosswalk. There was concern from staff about how much traffic could potentially be built up in the summers going down Harriet towards the gas station if you do make it a four-way stop. Although it is in your transportation master plan as an option for what you can do, doesn't mean you have to pursue it. But just letting you know that was one of the comments. Comments regarding the concerns for commercial vehicles and trailers in the downtown. So the residents brought up the concerns. They like the idea of having construction trailers pyloned and marked off safely. However, they had additional concerns about construction vehicles parking in front of the locations they're working, and if there was a way that we could permit or create an access ability so that they could have a parking spot in front of a business or a house that they're working at. We did note that usually before 10 o'clock in the morning, you're pretty good, but if they have to run out and grab supplies or something else and they come back, they don't have their parking. They're asking if there's a way that we could have a permitting process so that they would be able to return to their construction zones and be able to work that way. A little more difficult within that, just because we don't have any mechanisms to control our block parking spots, but something that was brought up. This was probably one of the highest talked about items, was moving the speed limit from 50 kilometers an hour to 40. Residents did have concern that although you're reducing the speed limit, is it actually going to reduce speeds in town? There were concerns along the lines of enforcement and capabilities of enforcement, as well as concerns that were brought up about people that are already driving below the 50 kilometer speed limit. Is this going to set them to drive slower? And will that start to cause anger issues within other drivers in the community? So the residents that did attend felt that 50 kilometers should be maintained within the community and enforcement should be looked at further. But right now, council's proposed 40 kilometers an hour in the bylaw. Rideshare programs. Residents did note that there was some concern about non-profitable rideshare programs like people car sharing or carpooling, and do they need permission from the town to do that? We're looking more at the for-profit aspect. So if you're a rideshare program like an Uber or a Kari rideshare, that you would need permission from council to operate in the town. And so we can modify easily that wording to stipulate that it's a commercial-based for-profit use.
So quick one on this. I know there's a bunch more, but does it make sense for council to give feedback on this now, or just if there's anything that we have concerns on, bring it forward at the end?
The feedback any point if you have any questions or on any of these points, because in the end we're going to need direction from council on any and all of these points. If there's anything you want to pursue, change, modify for the bylaw. Right at this point, we haven't taken it to first reading. We've hosted the public hearing of objections, the open house, and so this is the feedback that we've received. So staff are seeking direction from council on items that you'd like to go forward with.
It'll be easier as we go. Your Worship, back to the question, maybe it would be easier as it goes through some of these major points. Some of them don't require direction or anything. We're just informing you. But for, like the first one, for the concerns at the Harriet Street intersection, would council prefer a four-way stop?
That's what I was wondering,
Yeah.
like, do we want to, because we debated this one at length as well, and I think consensus was that we would try the line, and the four-way stop we did not want to do, and there was also concerns about a backup of traffic flow in the summer as a result of this as well. And as well, the risk of more accidents from people just not being used to having a four-way stop. They're not to say there's no accidents at that corner, but it's not as significant as one would think compared to other municipalities. As far as the trailers, we'll see how it goes. If people are worried about pylons being taken, then we'll address it at that time.
Sorry, Your Worship, just I do want to make one point on the commercial trailer. So we've already made adjustments to the next version of the draft that highlight if you are unhooking your trailer and it's a commercial-based trailer, that you will have to have your pylons out and display. We're not looking more at recreational boat, like people out with recreational boats or anything, but if they do become unhooked and left for more than 24 hours, then we're going to start questioning the pyloning of those, but it's more for commercial trailers.
Perfect. And the 50 to 40, like when you say residents had concerns, is that like all residents? Is that like how many residents are we talking had concerns over that? Like just, is it like just a couple individuals that brought it up?
Yeah, Councillor Neal can speak on it. Certainly the ones that were there, they did, but it got into a broader discussion of how it's, why it's enforceable, or how it's going to be enforced, but it's still staff's recommendation to lower it. That was, out of the survey, that was a vast majority of the survey respondents said to lower it. Then it's just a bigger tool, because it's a lot, if people are driving 55 and a 50 is okay, but they're driving 60 and a 40, then that's a fairly significant infraction that the police can pull over.
Well, because I do agree that enforcement is in fact the issue, but with that being said, I think we've all seen someone that's gone by 45 kilometers an hour and you think they're speeding in certain areas when it's busy and they're not. So enforcement is an issue, but the 50 kilometers an hour also is, and based on the data that we received from when we put up the speed sign, is majority of residents were actually going between 40 and 50, like an overwhelming majority, and that's the perception of people think on these small streets with cars on it that people are speeding. So I think that was where council consensus was on that decision, if I recall. So council, does anyone feel differently getting this feedback, or are we still comfortable with the 40 kilometers an hour? Still comfortable with 40? Okay. The ride share, is there, that's more definitions than anything, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, we'll just keep doing it this way then.
Yep, no, we'll go section by section here. So there was a suggestion that we look at installing additional crosswalks at along King Street, so at Montague and Parr Street. There was concerns about people crossing the road safely when it is busy in traffic, especially like Sundays or even in the summertime. Sorry, and you lose visibility. Cost approximately $15,000 to do the crosswalks. You have to drop the curbs in those areas to safely allow for accessibility to get across. So it would be something we would have to look at in a future project or.
Yeah, so the two that we did, we discussed during budget time. I think we can put that in the parking lot for budget time, because that's, there's 2 or 3 of them. That's $30,000 to $45,000 right there in crosswalks. So.
Well, it's a concern too, you wish to remember, if every corner on King Street is crosswalked, it's going to put traffic to a standstill.
Yeah, I agree. But still, 1 or 2 maybe in key areas where there's the churches there. They're used quite regularly, and it's something for budget time. But the other 2 crosswalks that we have within this bylaw, we budgeted for during budget time. So let's put that in the parking lot, and then council at that particular time can discuss that one when they're looking at all the overhead capital projects.
Yep. There was a suggestion brought forward to reduce fines if paid within 30 days. So any of our tickets that are put out there, if somebody comes in within 30 days, that the fine be reduced by 50% to show good faith. It's an option that council has. No recommendation either way.
Do other municipalities kind of have that discount for quick payment?
We'd have to look, but most municipalities do it the opposite way. If you don't pay within 30 days, it goes up, doubles.
Yeah. It's more incentive based though, I guess.
Yeah. Carrot instead of stick, I guess.
Council, over to you. I think leaving that as is for now is fine.
Okay. There was just a duplication in section 5.3 and 9.2 as it regarded to the school zone, so that's going to be changed. One item that was brought up was 19.2.8, which is under idling vehicles. There was concern from residents regarding the need for medical transportation and climate control and idling of vehicles. I mean, we're not seeing huge amounts of idling in town, and for those that we are, we're educating. We're not fining or anything in those lights. We could look at removing it, but it was added into many other bylaws that if there was a need for long-term idling.
My understanding is it's just a tool or mechanism in case there's some circumstance that requires it.
Correct.
I'm familiar with one camper that parked in front of an Airbnb and ran it for 4 straight days, right? Like there's one-offs, right? But I myself haven't got any. It's already been in the bylaw, right? Like that's,
It's already in the bylaw.
so I haven't heard a single complaint on that. Has anyone? Like enforcement required, but I think we can skip over that one, council, don't you? Okay.
Next section is actually under towing. So 24.5 noted under administrative penalties that we were noting for this round that if you had 3 ticket infractions that and that weren't paid, that we could tow your vehicle. There were concerns from residents that we may be overstepping grounds and saying where's their right to fight in the courts. As council is aware, we're limited in our abilities with the courts and our processes there. This was another mechanism recommended by the RCMP and other enforcement agencies to say put something in for towing. And I can say in the 5 years I've been here, we've attempted to tow 1 person, and that was a winter tow, and that was because they had 3 tickets that were unpaid beyond 90 days.
Council, over to you. I think we can skip that one as well.
Section 24.8 notes about administrative penalties. Right now, it basically says if it goes to the courts, the tickets can go basically get $500 tickets when you go there. We can add some flexibility into it to say, tickets can be adjusted up to $500 by the courts. The reason why this was put in the last bylaw was due to the fact that there were situations at the courts to which the judge actually said we should be writing something into our bylaw that gives them flexibility in the event somebody is not participating with the court system or participating in the processes, and it gives the courts an ability, further flexibility within our bylaws to enforce further. So up to council, but it would be a simple word change within that.
Again, I haven't had any complaints, and it's something that the judges actually asked us to put in. And I will say that the cost of going to court is extremely expensive for the municipality to challenge tickets as is.
Correct. So additional comments here. So the snow removal from property we actually had written in the bylaw, so we can just move off that one. I just missed it within it when I was reading it. One aspect that we need to come back to is no camping or RV camping overnight on town streets, town parking lots, and parks. So council, we've had discussions about options of how do we educate and inform the public about that includes signage, that includes educational materials put on RVs and campers. But what we need to know from council in our previous discussions was flexibility if they camp there overnight on one night, but to make sure that we're on them to be aware that they're not allowed to beyond that. Council, what is your prerogative for RVs and campers? We know that we had a number of public outcry and comments last summer as we saw more proliferation of them in our in our parks, in our parking lots, and along town streets. Now, this will come with a level of education with our enforcement, and that would be the goal, is further education, but what would council like to do?
So this one actually I have heard quite a bit about as well, and I know that even in our packages, there's a number of residents that feel like more needs to be done because it seems to be growing. So, so right now we do the 24-hour warning, right, is what we...
Right now, we actually don't have anything in our bylaws.
So I think the 24-hour warning is something that we should do to minimize the camping. Now, is there an area that we would allow it? Would be the question. Because sometimes the campgrounds are full, and then if you say nothing at all anywhere, then you're telling people to leave your community. So over to you, council, but like we talked about Harry Mallory Sports Field or something like that, but in the same sense, if you've ever been there at a soccer night with all the youth that's run around that parking lot, it's full, and it's a pretty dangerous area as is, and I don't know if youth playing soccer and having people camping there is necessarily the best fit either, right? So, over to you, Council. Councilor.
Yeah, I guess my only comment is a lot of these people, I assume, would be from out of town, might arrive in town 7:30 at night looking for a spot to park. And how do we notify them? You know, kick them out of town. We can't kick them out of town. We don't have somebody to catch them. So and it would be, I think, grossly unfair to ticket them. So I think somehow our bylaw has to reflect that.
So the 24-hour mechanism gives you the education component to say, hey, you're parked here now, but this is where you should be. I kind of feel like it makes sense to have an area where you're putting them at. I just don't like, maybe it's just my personal, I don't like telling campers to go to an area where there's youth. I just don't. That's why I'm against the original suggestion of a ball field. I'd be against it away. I wouldn't want to buy a playground. You want it in an area which there's no one in. And I know some people are out in Bayside. They're out by St. Croix. Yeah, and that's a pretty good spot to direct them to right there. And I don't think there's any concern whatsoever that I'm aware of from the federal government about that right now. Anyway, so I think that might be a good area to educate them and tell them that that's where we recommend going. And it's fairly close to St. Andrews, like the downtown plat of St. Andrews, right? So it's not that far out. Obviously, I know people that have to drive further. Yeah. Council, over to you if you think that would be the most workable and try to do education. Councilor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I guess I take Councilor Weir's comments very serious, and I am a compassionate person. At least I hope I am. But I do believe that a lot of people just take advantage of good nature, and if people in that community know that in our good nature we allow you to sleep at night in town, then I don't think our situation is going to improve. I think we'll just continue to see more and more campers. If you allow any amount of it, I think that it'll just continue to get worse and worse and worse. So either I think we have to deal with it or we have to allow it. I can't see how we can sit on the fence and just allow things to be the way they are, because there's definitely been a difference in the last summer or two with the amount of people that are overnight camping in town. I see it, and I don't even live in town. So that's showing me that the situation's been getting worse. So I really think in this situation, we need to have a second location like the St. Croix parking lot there, and direct them there, and whether it's 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, I think that we have to put our foot down and say, I'm sorry, you can't stay here. The nearest place that we know is just up the road. And unless you do that, I think you open yourself up to just being taken advantage of. And obviously the community has already spoken that they don't want to see the campers overnighting. Not on town streets.
I can appreciate that, someone camping in front of your house, right? Maybe Council with you, we'll put, sorry, Councilor Michelle, then I'll go to staff. Sorry about that, Councilor Michelle.
Thank you, Worship. Just briefly, I think having a no camping on overnight streets policy or bylaw is a good thing, and enforcement is a difficult thing. I think, give them one night, so. But officially, you're not allowed to camp on the streets in St. Andrews overnight. But in terms of enforcement, unless staff's going to be out there beating on the doors, I think you give them a grace of one night. People are arriving late, as per Councillor Weir's comments. And I know when I was biking across Canada, there was dozens of communities I showed up in and camped, not necessarily at a campground, just guerrilla camping in a park or whatever. I mean. And spent money in those communities, and people coming to town in those Class B campers are spending money. But enforcement is very tricky. I think you just have a general no camping, and if after one day they're still there, then you can suggest other places. But I think it's too difficult to enforce and not exactly welcoming in terms of our being a tourist-based economy. Thank you, Your Worship.
So council, would it be possible to just, like for staff, just to draw that up and just basically be no overnight camping, with exception of we direct them to the St. Croix Lookout parking lot, but there's also, and I don't know the wording, but a clause where bylaw enforcement can use discretion to allow people 24-hour grace periods. So that way there's, to your point, you come in at 7:30 at night, you can't find anything, there's no one open to talk to, you're going to park somewhere and it probably is going to be the wrong. So I think that's the compromise. Is there a way to structure that with the spirit of that?
I guess a couple of things, Your Worship. One thing, I wonder if most of these campers are transient on their way as opposed to being here multiple nights. So I'm not sure if giving a 24-hour notice will actually reduce the problem any. Be my only concern. The other thing about enforcement is we do have in the budget a contract for bylaw enforcement, and we could have that person kind of starting later in the day, at least doing a, while the sun's still up but before the lights go out type of run, just to see if there's anybody that's camped out in any of these facilities and just try to redirect them out of town. We will have to talk to our friends at Parks Canada to make sure they allow camping at the St. Croix Lookout, because they may turn a blind eye to it, but they probably may not
When you're
appreciate us
promoting it.
promoting it.
Okay, that makes sense. So let's proceed ahead with that if that makes sense to everybody. Okay. Next one is no campers in the downtown core.
Yes, so something that is becoming more prevalent is campers parking in the downtown core, whether it's on Water Street or Queen Street, is what we're starting to see. Again, everybody is trying to get close to where the downtown is, so for walkability and accessibility, but we have discovered, and there's another section here about jamming up of intersections, blocking of sight lines and areas like that. Some of these RVs, so if you park on Queen Street across from Sheriff Andrews' house, some of these RVs are sticking out well beyond the parking spot limits, so they're really trying to force themselves in there while causing other potential dangers as it comes to the roadway. So council, the concern is they're taking up lots of space, they're causing safety issues within the downtown. Do you want to limit RVs and campers in the downtown, noting that some of these people are coming in with only the RVs and campers to drive downtown? There is some safety with that, but again, if it's their only mode of transportation and we have limited modes of alternative transportation.
And we have limited spaces to send them to. There's one thing if we had a big parking lot 2 blocks up, but there's almost no spot within the plat that they would fit into comfortably.
So, council, to you, what would you like with regards to RVs and campers parking in basically the main blocks for your Queen Street and Water Street?
Council?
This is a difficult one, I can appreciate. However, I think that we continually as a council have to balance the needs of our full-time residents with the needs of our tourists, which we value and appreciate them coming to visit our town. However, I have heard a lot about this issue, particularly from the senior population who, may not need an accessible parking spot, but need not to be walking from the arena downtown, where I think our RVs and campers should be directed to the arena. Can we use the school in the summer? Can we use the school parking? We're not allowed to use the school parking lot.
It's used, but we can't promote it, I don't think.
Correct.
And the churches are.
At least that was a policy up until the election. We can follow up with DTI to see if they've changed their policy on that.
I'd like to
And
have
the
us
churches?
follow up with DTI, because anyway, so it would be good to follow up with DTI about those parking lots, but that we could direct them to those other areas to park in order to balance the needs of both our residents and our tourists.
We also have the hop-on, hop-off bus that
Exactly.
private
Yeah.
business is paying, and it actually picks people right up at the campground and at the arena parking lot, so there is an
So
alternative.
they could park at the park.
On that though, in theory, I don't
Indian
think
point.
campers downtown's a good thing, but in the same sense, just playing the other side of it, there's 2 concerns is we as a municipality really don't have anything close to the downtown for RVs to park at. So obviously in newer design communities that weren't loyalistly laid out in square grids, they have take that into account, and they have appropriate parking, maybe just a block up. And the other thing that I just am aware of is, as we make more of these policies, no RV camping, no campers and things, it's just more and more signs in our downtown. Like, there's so much that you have so much regulation everywhere you turn, there's a sign, and that can take away from the look and feel of your community as well. So I see both sides of this one for sure. And a lot of people that do camp, not everyone, but a lot of them are elderly and retired, and you know, depending on the time of day and what the plans are, sometimes that shuttle service may not be ideal while you're waiting as well, right? So yeah, there's no right answer on this one. Councillor Ware.
Yeah, just one further comment, and you mentioned a bit of discretion for 24 hours. I don't think it has to be 24 hours. If somebody pulls in
True.
7:30, 8 o'clock at night, 12 hours is enough.
Agreed.
Get out of there at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And so I don't think 24 is necessary. I think 12 to 15 is more than adequate.
Yeah, I
You're
agree.
doing them a favor.
9 a.m. the following day or something like that, right? Councillor Gubachel.
Thank you, Worship. I think just like the previous one, no camping with regard to RVs downtown, with regard to RV parking downtown, I think officially we say no, and preferably they don't park down there. But again, it comes down to discretion. If it's not a busy day, or if they're not parked in a bad spot, it's up to staff's discretion to decide if it's a ticketable offense. You know what I mean? So it's officially no, preferably no, but really it would be up to the bylaw enforcement officer or staff to use their discretion and good judgment in deciding whether to approach and ticket people.
Education based, but it prohibits someone from buying a camper and parking it downtown the entire summer is where
A
we're at.
final and just an aside would be to say we're talking about parking, and for years we've been talking about parking, and we tiptoe around the fact that we have parking downtown and it's valuable, and yet we don't charge people for that service to be able to park downtown, to be able to park in front of their buildings, to be able to park wherever. We really need, and in the transportation plan laid out that we paid $80K for, laid out different strategies for pay parking downtown. We never really pursued any of those, and I think that'll be a job of future councils to assess and address and charge people for the privilege and to be able to park downtown. Because if there's no value to it, then a lot of people take it for granted and park too long, et cetera, as I've spoken too long. Thank you.
Yeah, we've got consensus on that one a few times. So, but yeah, point taken for sure. If there's no charge, then it's hard to enforce. Deputy Mayor.
Will, like the community college, allow parking there or behind the Ross Library, or have we looked into those areas that churches, like the Catholic Church, that has a parking lot that's not used Monday to Friday, but is used on Sunday, Saturday and Sunday sometimes?
We can approach the churches through your worship, but one of the things we looked at for the no camping overnight was not in our, like the Ross Library and the Ross Museum have very limited parking in the back, so when they take that up, it's gone, right? So it's finding the balance of residential versus other. And your worship, Councillor Blanchard has a question.
Thank you. Councillor Neal is just letting me know that Councillor Blanchard is there. I cannot see that writing.
It's Blanchard raised hand.
That's a very small hand. Yeah, Councillor Blanchard, sorry about that. It's tiny on the screen.
No worry, and I wasn't sure. I was texting Councillor Neal there. Just I wasn't sure if you could actually see me on screen or not. So
You definitely can't see it.
I just wanted to weigh in terms of an outright ban on RV and campers down in the downtown and the historic business district down there. I don't know if I'm in favor of that. I like the idea of dedicated RV parking somewhere. I know we don't really necessarily have that specifically now. and I like the idea of having it available. Maybe people will utilize that. I mean, I think, you know, some of those large RVs are pretty unwieldy and difficult to maneuver downtown. I think if someone had the option of dedicated RV parking, they might just take that up on their own and wouldn't necessarily need bylaw enforcement to get them to take advantage of that. So I like the idea of us looking at some dedicated RV parking, you know, where that's going to be or where that would be. It's up for debate, I guess, and discussion if we can find something. But I don't know, as was said previously, you know, in some cases, this is the only means of transportation. They're not coming in with an alternate vehicle that they can utilize to get around downtown. And, you know, while I can sympathize, obviously, with residents, you know, the tourism and the dollars that brings to our community are important, and I wouldn't want to push out folks who are bringing in the RVs and the campers.
Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. All right, do you think you have got it? I think it's the education element again, very similar to the other one. Thank you, Councillor Blanchard. Next one is the intersections.
Yeah, so thank you, Worship. Back to similar with the discussions of RVs and campers. One of the big issues we did see, and it's been building up over the last couple of years, is actually Queen Street and the intersections being blocked on all sides. So we've had a number of photos, complaints, submissions about this, that we do have in our bylaw you're not allowed to park within 10 meters of the stop sign. Doesn't mean the other parts of the intersection are not open to being blocked. This is causing sight triangle issues. You're not able to see around corners, creating dangerous and unsafe areas for traveling. So in speaking with Public Works, and one of the easiest solutions we can do is actually install the no parking signs on U-channel posts pointing towards the intersections 10 meters out from there. And it's specifically looking at the Queen Street, Elizabeth Street, Edward Street, William King, Frederick, and Princess Royal Street for these as options to clear up the sight lines there. We're not seeing the same sight line issues along Water Street because most of them are their buildings or there's already jetting out that people can't block those intersections, but we are seeing definitely a safety concern as it comes to Queen Street with parking in those locations. So council, to you, we can install these as a solution. We can test them for a year, and if successful, then we can leave them, or if not, we can change the bylaw. But we are seeing a lot of issues with people blocking the intersections along Queen Street.
It's 10 meters, the standard is
10 meters is the standard setback from stop signs.
okay. Council, over to you. Councilor Neal.
I'll just quickly comment that the 10 meters, I just was looking it up here, it is actually in the New Brunswick Motor Vehicle Act.
That's what I thought.
So I'm not even sure we need signage for that. Like, again, it's like
The
parking in a, you know,
the situation is
railroad tracks. Like,
yeah. The situation is
driver's license, you should know this.
There's a lot of things people should know with driver's licenses. The situation is it's in front of a stop sign. If it's adjacent to a stop sign on the other side of the street where there isn't a stop sign, or, you know, like you may have a two-way stop, but you're still having people blocking all sections of the intersection. So your sight triangle's gone. So yes, in front of a stop sign, yes, that's already there. But everywhere else within the intersection we have nothing that stipulates no blocking of those. And yeah, it's just you can't see around, especially when you've got RVs, big trucks, vehicles, cube vans blocking the intersections. It's becoming dangerous, and you're crawling out into traffic to be able to see around them.
Council, over to you. I'm fine with this one, including education is what it more is, because to your point is I didn't think you're allowed to park right in an intersection. But you're not allowed to park and block someone's driveway, and we see that over here too, and fire hydrants and everything else. So yeah, as long so it'd be just one sign kind of
There'd be
attached.
the little no parking signs that we have pointed towards the main intersections.
But in the same sense, it would be 4 at every intersection, right? Is that correct?
For those intersections, correct.
So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 24 could be 8. So put 24 more signs for sure. So just about my point on the signs, right?
Could we,
Signs aren't magical.
No.
That they can picture themselves with it and keep on going.
Someday.
Just a point, maybe we're looking at this in a wrong set of glasses there. Rather than have signs on the side of the road, and I agree, there can be so many signs on the side of the road, eventually you just stop reading them and they don't mean anything to you, right? Maybe the best thing we could do is in those areas where there's no parking, we could paint the grids red along where you're not supposed to park. And if you put the red up on the curb, then it will show. And really, the only problem we have is traditionally in the summer when we're busy, right? And if residents are familiar with those signs being red or the road being red where you're not allowed to park, then we shouldn't have a problem with them parking there in the wintertime when the roads are snow covered.
Yeah, the yellow curb makes, but the problem is there's no curbs at a lot of these, right? Because I thought of that too. That's the easiest way. Because that's what we do downtown. Is the ends are yellow and you can't park there. But these intersections don't. It's lawn. Like people are literally parking on that grass strip, and you can see it worn down.
Through your worship, another solution is you can put obstacles there, planters or other, but that is going to increase cost of and potential damage of people hitting them as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't go that route. So, council, over to you. Would you like to put the signs up or not? I think we all agree that people shouldn't be parking right under the stop signs, but we have all seen it. All right, I'm seeing that. Probably proceed with that one unless someone feels different.
Your worship.
Yep.
Just, I know you mentioned the no curbs in those areas, but do we not have sort of yellow paint on the road itself in certain areas also to identify no parking zone, no parking areas? I know we've got the yellow curbs, but do we not have some, I'm just thinking yellow paint on the road itself? Would that maybe indicate the no parking area? I don't know.
You could have a box with the stripes going through it,
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Possibly, your worship, but it'd be the same type of issue. We could do it on the pace. You can run into a lot of gravel and broken asphalt too. Probably the stuff would be gone after a month, but we can look at that if it's a solution.
I think for year one, maybe a sign to see how that goes, and then because the paint's hard to remove, right? And I think if you paint every side street, it's one of those things that would also look different if you had every corner all yellowed out. No win.
My question is, what are we going to do as far as enforcement, whether we have the sign there or not? Like if somebody parks there, ignores the sign, it's kind of the same situation now if they park there. I mean, they're still ignoring the Motor Vehicle Act in the sense that they can't park there.
So through your worship, they're only, if they're parking in front of the stop sign, they're in violation. Not necessarily parking across other intersections unless there's something else in the Motor Vehicle Act that has something about blocking the intersections. We just don't have it in our bylaw at this point. Councillor Hurdle has a question as well, your worship, or comment.
Sure.
Yeah, just jumping off of Councillor Neal's point there, I see this as really being an issue on peak traffic times, and we're looking Canada Day in the summertime, things like that. So just curious to know, in those moments when we are seeing peak congestion, what does our enforcement look like today? Are we walking the streets? Are we ticketing cars? What are we doing today?
Through your worship, education. It's educate, warn, ticket. And I'll note it's not just Canada Day. I mean, we're starting to see it proliferate across from May right through to October. It is more prevalent when you do have events or festivals going on, but we were getting complaints on a Wednesday and on a Monday, and it was not within the festival or an event time. So Market Day is pretty hectic as it comes to that, and noting with the staff that we have, we are patrolling at key times. So, for instance, lunch times, especially around Frederick Street, staff are there making sure that we actually have a lane of traffic to actually flow through. Because even though we have multiple signs up on one section and no parking and painted across, it gets blocked. So we generally have to push people along. So even with, sorry, go ahead, Chris.
Well, I was just going to say, following up on the ticketing and stuff, usually, not usually, we always record license plates. And if we see repeat offenders, then by the second or third time at the same offense, then it's an automatic ticket. But, we're still following council's lead early on from your mandate was trying to manage the number of tickets to a reasonable level, if you will, compared to prior council's direction. So we're working hard with feet patrols to try to, if people are doing something that they shouldn't, that they try to get them to move along, provide alternative locations, etc.
Okay, so for direction for staff on this, how do we want to proceed?
I guess just to go back to a lot of questions we've been answering, Your Worship, it is a nuisance. I'm not going to deny that whatsoever, but it hasn't led to any incidents. There might be some close calls, but the question is back to how much signs do you want to put up, how much do you want to pay for enforcement for something that is a nuisance, and for those that experience on a daily basis, including staff, it is a nuisance. But people seem to manage through it because of the low speeds we're getting there. So I'm not recommending you not do it. It's just a question of how much down this road you want to go for, regardless of the length of the season, there's still a limited number of days compared to the whole year.
So we could implement it and just do the education element, and then prolific offenders would be who you're targeting. Does that make sense to everybody?
If you put the tool in, you wouldn't necessarily need to sign it. It just gives the bylaw enforcement officer or the police a chance to say, well, here, this isn't supposed to happen. We'll try, where there's no indication of yellow, we'll try to figure out a way to do it that is indiscreet, but we'll have a look at that and see what we can do.
Okay, let's go ahead with that. Council, anyone feel different? I'm good. Okay, last one.
Last one's the one-way street. So in the schedule right now, it says from April 1st to October 30th. The reason for that was it gave us flexibility to select the time that at which it was implemented. We've never implemented it earlier than April 30th or May 1st, and generally we end it after Indulge, so it's usually the third weekend of October, but again, gives us a little bit of flexibility and breathing room if we wanted to prep, be ready. If you had an event come up, something unique, we could extend it, but I mean, staff would recommend if you wanted to put it to May 1st and leave it for October 30th, we can always put it out to the public. It closed early, we shut it down early, or take it right to the end, because within 15 days of October 30, or 16 days within October 30th, you're moving already to your winter parking ban, which goes till March 31st. So, direction from council if you guys want to change how we've sort of tailored the schedule for the one-way street.
Really, it's about May 2-4 weekend and then Indulge Festival. Anything else outside of those dates?
Even say your yard sale.
Yeah, sorry, yard sales fair. Yeah, so the weekend before.
Yeah.
Really, outside of that, then it's not needed. It's not that busy down there. So, do we have to just change that as a...
Oh, it would just be from the second weekend of May to after the third weekend of October, and we can just schedule that within the...
That works for me. Council works for you? Okay. That one's done. Okay. Thank you for that. The next one, we're good to move off that one? The next one is the discussion on draft bylaw 25-03, which is the animal control. Is that you, Mr. Spear, or Mr. Donovan?
I can start it and give Mr. Manopper a break if you want, or if he's...
Go for it.
Okay.
You jump on this one.
So again, this is just a discussion, council. We think we're getting closer, but we just wanted to bring some things to your attention. So we are bringing forward an updated version of the animal control bylaw. One thing, it should be noted that the province is not contracting the SPCA after March 31st to do animal control. So I'm going to get out a thing this week to look at options. There's really only two options in the area to who will do it. We can talk about that later if need be. But having such, we need to increase the boundaries of the animal control bylaw to include the larger, newer municipality so that the extended zones can be included. So we've had to update some other things, the definitions, updates to control, to the fierce and dangerous animals. We've got to look at enforcement to include the bylaw officer. Their older version only says the animal control officer, but it's more of a shared duty as it evolved, that we didn't have a fixed bylaw enforcement officer before. We want to revisit homesteading. We had a good discussion with Councillor Bennett earlier today, and the next version may include some broader definitions of that. We've got to go back and look at it. In prior discussions on homesteading, we talked that we'd wait till the zoning bylaw kind of address some of it and then incorporate it, but the zoning bylaw could take another 8 months to a year because we're just getting into the first draft in the next couple of months. And so we may see if we can include that, but it does bring with us some challenges. So we're going to revisit that on the next version. And then there's some grammar and spelling. I guess if there's any other additional changes or comments that you'd like to bring, then we can bring it forward to another or public hearing of objections to see if people have any concerns. About the only thing was the homesteading was the primary concern, that our old bylaw didn't address it appropriately for non-urban settings. We'll say we'll, currently or previously in the old St. Andrews, we allowed 4 chickens and no roosters, and that was about the extent of farming you could do. And now with all the various types of homesteaders and even professional agricultural operations in the prior LSDs, it gives us an opportunity to tighten that up a little bit and to ensure that those that are homesteading are doing it at a proper level that was intended, at least in the Shamcook Rural Plan, that has it listed there, and that we can incorporate some of the definitions in there along with some of the legalities for enforcement to try to proceed forward with that.
Thank you, Mr. Spear. Councillor Ware.
Yes, there was a couple of the definitions that I looked at. Chicken, I think probably poultry would cover more breeds of chickens than just the word chicken. I think poultry is the appropriate word. And the one that is missing is waterfowl. And anybody that's ever run into an ugly goose, I'd rather run into a dog any day. But that way we specifically cover ducks and geese. So.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. You have your chickens in a row over there when it comes to the definitions. See what I did there? See what I did there?
Under Councillor Weir, it'd actually be ducks in a row.
Ducks in a row, I guess. Poultry in a row doesn't go, does it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Hey, yeah, for this one in particular, the Shamcook Bayside wards, it'd be good to review prior to the hearing of objections and just make sure that, residents that have had farms for a while and things like that, that this bylaw works for them as well, right? So we'll do a more thorough review for sure, but thank you. Any questions from anyone on council? But it's almost like I wouldn't call it an introduction to it, but it's starting to get closer to being something that goes to the public, right? Yeah. All right, we'll keep moving then on that one, and Councillor Hurdle.
Caught me off guard there for a second. Let me
Quick
skip
transition,
ahead.
quick transition.
You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this is in reference to EBC 250101, and the subject is bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks. Second reading. The background is the bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks in the town of St. Andrews, is being presented to replace bylaw number 75, which has been in place since 1985. This bylaw has provisions to address and regulate these business opportunities in the community. Please see the attached document for a copy of the bylaw. The following bylaw processes have taken place. Public hearing of objections was February 3rd, 2025. The first reading was February 3rd, 2025, and the second reading is today, and third and final reading is yet to come. So the town has received one letter of correspondence since the first reading. See the attached document for details. Staff are proposing to change section 7.2.3 to read, other locations within the ward of St. Andrews can be considered i.e. on private property or other identified town-owned land for special occasions only and/or by request of council, and must be approved by the clerk. If council is comfortable with this change, staff will update the bylaw and council can proceed to second reading. So the motion before us is that the council of the town of St. Andrews grants leave for the second reading to bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw to regulate peddlers, buskers, transient traders, and food trucks in the town of St. Andrews, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Hurdle. Seconder for this one. I've got Councillor Harlan. Discussion? Mr. Spear?
Sorry, Your Worship, it's just something that happened to come up to me a little while ago, and I forgot to talk to the clerk about it. But in one of the locations under 7.2.1, we're talking about this facility, the W.C. O'Neill Arena. But one of the concerns I might have is that we've got a tenant at the canteen that's operating and trying to keep a business going inside there, and we're particularly possibly putting a full-time competitor right in their face in a more prominent location. So, the current tenant was hoping to operate year-round, and we're just waiting to see. So I'm just wondering if we should rethink this as a possible location.
That's fair. That's really fair. If I was renting and that's what they're doing, they're paying rent to the town of St. Andrews, I would be upset that such a little traffic flow, especially in the summer, and you put that right there. I think that there's a lot of merit in that comment. Perhaps if we add at the end of it reference to basically better wording that unless the canteen's operating, right? Like basically if the canteen, they make a decision not to open that summer, then we will put a food truck there. But if they're operating regular business hours, then we shouldn't. Like, better words, but that's the spirit of it. Does that work for everybody? Because I do know that they're trying to make a go of it, and I do think that would definitely hurt them, and I don't think that that's a fair thing to do to them. So I that's a great comment. Councillor Ware.
Yeah, I guess my only comment is signage for the canteen. What we would allow them to put out is signage, because a lot of tourists in particular didn't even know it was open and in there, so.
I always wonder about that too, if there can't be some type of variance that, again, we probably have to go to PAC, not us, but some type of variance, especially in the summer for the canteen, to let people know that there's a food option open to the public. And I know we have our sign out front, but it's rotating, and to catch that and see it, it's not as good as having a, yeah.
So through Your Worship, if you recall the mini golf gentleman that was here last year, he was allowed a sandwich board sign to be put out daily. So
can we put it down by the road though, instead of, because there's no one coming?
Well, that was where he was putting it down.
Oh no, I thought it was up by the top.
It was up here, but he was moving it down back.
Oh, he was moving because I saw it at the top. Okay, so yeah, as long as you put it down by the road, I think that's more than fair. Just saying, canteen open.
You've got two questions online.
Okay, I see two hands. Now I can see them. Councillor, who was first? Did you catch that? Blanchard. Okay, we're going alphabetical.
Thanks. I guess, yeah, so if there is a sign going down by the road, that to me makes sense. Because I did have a question about, not that advertising is our responsibility, obviously, it's a private business that's renting from us, but in terms of foot traffic and drawing people in, it seems like that would be a challenge. And I agree in that, putting a food truck right next to someone could be potentially a bad thing, but at the same time, when I think about locations, in communities where there are food trucks, typically there are multiple food trucks for multiple options, and it's highly visible when you have like multiple trucks. Even one or two trucks would let people know that there is food in that area. That, I mean, potentially, and I wouldn't want to speak for the business owners themselves, but potentially that could draw and actually attract more people. And it just gives one more option when people come in to look for something to eat. So I wouldn't necessarily write it off as a bad thing, but again, I wouldn't want to speak for the business owners. So,
and I'll go to you, Councillor Hurdle, but how about we just go ahead with second reading as is, and Mr. Spear can talk to the canteen and get their thoughts on it before we go to third reading. Councillor Hurdle, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. I guess I apologize because I sort of skipped over what I'm assuming is a friendly amendment in the background. And if that amendment was responding to the individual or the correspondence that we received, and if that's the case, if we just double check that was satisfactory to the person who corresponded.
Through you.
Through your worship, we can go back to them about the correspondent, about the change. The reason why that section was there was to give flexibility to staff if the event we filled up all of our areas of potential for food trucks, that they would give flexibility to it. When it was really being addressed and when staff brought it forward as an option to look at for special events or at council, discretion with it, one of the things that we discussed was, well, if we limit it only to, if we took that whole section out, we only limited it to the Indian Point or the arena, Indulge, for instance. They bring in food trucks for it. We wouldn't be able to issue them a permit without having the ability to actually have flexibility to put that. So that's why the recommendation was to change it to have 2 special events only or at the discretion of council. So it still gives flexibility without impeding on the key areas that you want to target.
So maybe in the resolve of this would be approved by, I always love about staff discretion, but approving by council, it's in a public forum so people are aware of what's happening, versus clerk can be done down in an office meeting, and there's not that many of them. They're one-off. It's like you
Special events.
Oktoberfest, Indulge, we're already approving them anyway. So maybe to start, just because we're walking in baby steps, this makes sense. But the question is, there's not that many locations where they're approved right now outside of that. So especially if we're taking the arena away, personally, I don't know if it's possible, but I'd love to see one down at Katie's Cove. Would be a great location as well, especially the traffic that the report that we received from Katie's Cove Inc. means. That's a great location to keep people down there. So.
And through your worship, there is a section within the bylaw that allows for the placement on private property, but still needs approval, and they need to show site maps and everything to town staff before you're issued. So Katie's Cove could still be an option.
Pull it right in there versus the parking lot. Well, the parking lot's actually private land too, right?
The parking lot?
Yeah, that's still
Katie's Cove.
Yeah, that's private land too, actually.
Yeah, so they would have to have their
All
private
right,
approvals.
so that's covered.
before.
So can we change that to? Do you guys agree by council? Because it does take care of that concern that if something's happening, at least a neighboring business in this case would have some visibility on it. Okay, let's do that then. Call that. We'll change that for third reading. Does that make sense? Because council, we still have another go at this. They're not major changes to the spirit of the bylaw. All right, anything else on this one? Otherwise, where are we at? We had a mover, seconder. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor of going to second reading, please signify by saying aye. Perfect, that's everybody, and we will make the amendments for the third reading. This is bylaw number 25-02, a bylaw regulating the licensing of peddlers, buskers, and transient traders in the town of St. Andrews. I'll read it by title. Number 1 is definitions, 2 is geographical area, 3 is peddler's license, 4 is bylaw exemptions for peddler's license, 5 is business license, 6 is transient traders licenses. My pages are sticking together. 7 is food trucks and food vending vehicles. Number 8 is general. Number 9 is revoking of license. 10 is enforcement, and 11 is repeal provision. It was read the second time on the 18th day of February 2025. All right, let's go back to the agenda, and I think it's Councillor Gumashil now. Is that correct? Yes.
Thank you, Your Worship. The next item is reference number RE 250207, dated February 12th, submitted by myself, and the subject is the 45th edition of the St. Andrews Kiwanis Father's Day race request for support. A very verbose subject. The background reads, the town of St. Andrews has received a request for support from Mike Powers, race director for the St. Andrews Father's Day Road Race regarding the 45th edition taking place on Sunday, June 15, 2025, 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Attached to this report is an outline for the race and the request to council. In summary, they are seeking support for 1, road barricades, which the committee will pick up from the Public Works. That's my job. Number 2, notice to the public on social media and the town website about the race, and to note the safety for all participants. And thirdly, request to have the Father's Day Road Race banner installed across from Tim Hortons. And the motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the request for support for the 45th edition of the St. Andrews Father's Day Race on Sunday, June 15, 2025, 9:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. Moved by myself. Should say a.m.
Thank you, Councillor Gumashil. I got a seconder by Councillor Bennett. Discussion on this one? Great Father's Day tradition in St. Andrews. Councillor Gumish, how many of those have you run in, do you think, out of the 45?
I don't know, but I know that the mayor has not beat me yet, so.
I haven't beat Councillor Neal's wife either. But Councillor Hurdle, how are you doing? Just take that out of the minutes, eh? Yeah, I think I've done over 20 myself, so you probably.
I have no idea. A bunch.
Yeah. All right. So, great annual event. All in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye. And that has been approved. Councillor Blanchard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Reference number RE 250208. Subject is the appointments to the Environmental Advisory Committee. So the town of St. Andrews is seeking to fill vacant positions on the Environmental Advisory Committee. As there are several new members, they will be appointed for a 2-year term to start the learning process and help develop the committee strategy moving forward. We still have some members on the committee with term limits approaching, but will continue to serve to help with the transition. Staff note that the new members have a wealth of knowledge and experience as it comes to the environment and climate change matters. The town has also received a resignation from the committee, and we would like to thank Mrs. Siobhan Neal for her contributions to the committee over the last 2 years, her contributions to the protection of green spaces, support of events, and contributions to the committee should be commended. So the motion that is before council is that the town of St. Andrews accepts the resignation of Mrs. Siobhan Neal from the Environmental Advisory Committee, and I so move.
Seconder for that one. Councillor Gumichel. Discussion. All in favor of approving the resignation, please signify by saying aye. And thank you, Ms. Neal, for all your contributions to the Environmental Advisory Committee. Next motion.
The next motion is that the town of St. Andrews appoints the following members to the Environmental Advisory Committee for a 2-year term. Muriel Jarvis, Steve Saunders, Pamela Greenwood, Rebecca Merzero, Mark Clark, Chris Kohler, Simon Courtney, and Paul Valenik. And I so move.
Seconder for that one. Councillor Gumichel. Discussion. Councillor Harlan.
I'm just wondering what the total number of members are on the Environmental Committee.
Through you, Your Worship, at this time, we've got 3 returning members, and we've got 8 new ones there. They're allowed to go up to 12, but there will be at least another 1 to 2 members that'll be stepping off, so it'll be within the 10 range.
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Anyone else? All in favor of welcoming these new members to the Environmental Advisory Committee, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. Thank you for raising your hand for the community. Next motion. Oh, sorry, we're under new business. Arena water line repairs. We did discuss that briefly at a staff update, so.
Yeah, maybe just for the public, Your Worship, really
Sure.
fast, is that about a week and a half ago now, I think it was, within the W.C. O'Neill Arena, when it was constructed, some of the water lines were actually laid within the concrete, and one of those lines going through the main lobby broke on a Friday afternoon, I think during the juniors. During the provincial juniors here. And so we've okayed some of the work, but the total cost to have a plumber come in and do all the work is about $25,000 in total, which has not been budgeted. We would have it under either our operating reserve funds or possibly capital reserve funds. As we get closer to the year, we'll have to see if or how much we need. But I'm hoping to get council to approve $25,000 for the repairs. There's also money available in the Tourism Accommodation Levy Fund. And to remind you why you could dip into that is, number one, during the off-season, a lot of these tournaments are bringing people to the hotels in town and to the businesses in town. They're not local tournaments, there's people from all over. And in a meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago with Explore St. Andrews, they were actually interested to see that there's more people staying in the first quarter of winter than there is in the last quarter of fall. So that's one reason. Number two, those washrooms are also used for the tourists of the Visitor Information Center. So I would suggest that either from 50 to 100% of the funding come from the Tourism Accommodation Levy, whatever council believes.
Thank you. I think we discussed 50/50. It is used by residents as well. Council, does anyone feel differently? I think 50/50 makes sense. Yeah, and there's no option. You need public washrooms for a building that houses so many people. Like I said, last weekend between the glow skate and the curling, the parking lot was absolutely packed up here. So you need adequate washrooms, and this building does a lot for the community. And you know, we've spent a lot bigger items on a lot, you know, necessities, but a lot important ones that we made the decision that this building is going to remain. So we need washrooms. That one's fairly easy. So proceed in 50/50, unless again someone feels differently, was what we discussed. Perfect. Does that work for you, Mr. Spear?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So the other one that's under new business would be under
Yeah, it would be
closed.
good to have a motion, though, Worship, because we're exceeding the
Okay.
budget.
Would you like to construct one, and I'll have someone?
Yes, so that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves emergency spending of $25,000 towards the repair of the water line at the WC O'Neill Arena, half of the funding to come from the development fund of the tourism accommodation levy,
And the remaining from the
and
existing.
the remaining from the operations.
I've got Councillor Gumishal just said that, and it's seconded by Councillor Bennett, so they both said the same thing as you. Any other discussion on this one? All in favor of approving, please signify by saying aye. And thank you, that has been approved. So the other item will be under close, so we are now in question period. Is there anyone online, Mr. Knopper?
Yeah, we have nobody online.
Was there anything submitted regarding tonight's agenda?
1 second.
Thank you.
Council, there was one item submitted from a resident. I have to do a bit more looking at it as it revolves parking, but I'll forward it to council as it relates to the motor vehicle bylaw.
Sounds good. It was quite lengthy, was it?
Lengthy enough. It's
Okay.
talking about green spaces and parking spots. And
Okay, so it's more feedback than, okay, sounds good. Any member that's in the audience like to speak this evening? All right, well, thank you for being here, appreciate it. That wraps up question period, so now we're into council and deputy mayor's comments. Council, over to you. Okay, deputy mayor.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. Two things. First of all, I want to thank everybody who flew a flag on Saturday, September the 15th, because that was Canada Flag Day, the inauguration of our flag. And I saw a lot of flags out and displayed, and they're still on display. And I want to thank the town for donating the small flags from Canada Day so we could decorate a little bit more in honor of Canada Flag Day. The second thing is March the 15th, 2025, which is a Saturday, here at the WC O'Neill Arena, will be the drumming and the rattle workshop. We need to have participation. People have asked for this, and we've tried, 2 times since being asked, and it seems like we can't get the people. We have gone for some funding, and so now what I'm going to do is we're going to change the rattles in the morning from 9 to 12, and the drums in the afternoon from 1 to 4. They're 12-inch drums, and so you will go home with a rattle, or you will go home with a drum, whichever you prefer, or both. The drums we have worked down to be $110 per drum, which is a very good cost. And the rattles didn't change much because there isn't much I can do for the rattles. $50 for the rattle, and that, is a really good price. The drum keeper will be Greg Mansfield, who's an excellent drummer and a drum keeper. He's built many drums, repaired many drums that I know of, and he will be instructing us on that day of how to make your own drum and how to make the rattles. Lunch is on your own, and as I say, it's an all day if you are doing both, but we're doing rattles in the morning, drums in the afternoon, and I need you to register with the town before March the 3rd is what we decided. So if we haven't heard from you, we will have to cancel, and this is my last put out for doing a workshop. So if you're interested, please send your money to the town. I'm asking them to accept it, but I think those are reasonable prices, and I think if anybody wants to have a drum or wants to have a rattle, this is your time to participate in the workshop. Thank you very much, and thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Any other member of council? Last call. Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Worship. Just a reminder to everyone that the Kiwanis Costume Carnival got postponed this past Sunday because of the weather event. So for anyone interested, please come this Sunday from 2 to 3:30 at the arena for a free skate. Dress up. I think there should be a contest for the person that most resembles Mayor Henderson. I think I'll have to go up and see who's up there.
Looks like it's a modeling competition.
Exactly.
All right, on that note, anyone else? All right, I'm good for this evening as well. So at 7:57 p.m., I'll be looking for a motion to move into closed session as per Local Governance Act Section 68(1)J, which is a labor and employment matter, including the negotiation of collective agreements. I think I saw the Deputy Mayor's hand today. Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Gumashell. All in favor of going to closed session, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. We are going to wait a moment for technology to shut down. Thank you again, everyone, for attending.